I love how the gong sets the tone and brings us into our sensory experience in the present moment. And that it seems to linger, or it does linger for a bit, so that we can allow our awareness to follow it. To bring our attention into the present moment, we will go over and recap some of the aggregates as we have already learned about them. So starting with form, we will put our intention into awareness of form as we experience it through the senses. We can experience sensation, the feeling of the floor, the blanket, the air, hardness, softness. We can be aware of the sounds and know that they are form. We experience form in different ways through our senses. As we hear certain sounds or experience certain sensations, we can note if it is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. What is the immediate response? Without thinking, just immediate response is what pops up. When the Buddha talks about the aggregates, he describes them, each of them, in various ways. The aggregate of form, he says, is like foam. He uses these descriptions to bring us to awareness of the emptiness of these aggregates. So foam seems like it's solid, but it's actually, the moment you try to grasp onto it, it disappears. For Vedana, he uses the image of arising bubbles and passing away bubbles. They just pop up like bubbles. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, disappear. Lots of bubbles. Appearing, disappearing. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, pleasant, unpleasant, 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 pleasant, 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 unpleasant. Arising and passing away. we can then put our intention into awareness on perception. We can see how noting is happening. We note even the pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. We are noting, is this unpleasant? Is it pleasant? Is it neutral? Perception is also arising and passing. The next aggregate is the aggregate of sankhara. Sankhara has many translations and ways of describing it, because it includes all of our mental states. It includes thoughts, habit patterns, emotions, moods. It is simultaneously active and passive. Sankhara seems to be one of the main factors in connecting past, present, and future. Sankhara is an aggregate of the 5 aggregates. It is listed as one of the aggregates that is arising and passing in every moment. It is also listed in codependent arising, in the list of codependent arising of conditionality, of how one thing causes another. It is the second on the list, and sankhara is caused by ignorance, and it creates consciousness. So consciousness is another that is listed both in the aggregates and also in the list of codependent arising of conditions, causes and conditions, how one thing creates another. So if we do not have ignorance, sankhara will not arise. But because we have ignorance, sankhara arises. Because sankhara arises, a new moment is born based on those sankharas. Sankhara is very closely related to karma. It is connected to the act of creating. It is also the creation, so it is the result of the creating. It is also the volition to create, the impulse to create. So it's the volition, it is the act of creating, and it is the result. The word sankhara comes from two parts, sam, which means together, and kur, meaning to make or do. In Hinduism, it's related to kriya. So sankhara is that which is put together, or in another way of saying it, co-fashioning. Translations of sankhara include volitional formations. So trying to include both the active and the passive sense of the word, and the intentional part of it, and also what comes out of it. So volitional formations or mental fabrications. So it's all the things that the mind concocts, it fabricates, and it fabricates reality as we experience it. And it fabricates our actions. It fabricates how the world happens around us. It's also karmic predispositions or conditioned things. It includes all of the mental factors, of the active mental factors, including thoughts, concepts, biases, habits, decisions, and they are triggered by sensory inputs. It takes raw perception and instantly begins concocting and spinning a narrative around the perceptions. And these narratives are based on past tendencies. So this is how the past influences the present. There are habit patterns that are formed that then arise automatically, seemingly out of nowhere. And these habit patterns, if we are not mindful, can deepen the habit pattern to reoccur in the future. So it is the conditioned and it is the conditioning. The volitional fabrications act as a creative force or a seed. They shape, condition, and propel the stream of consciousness forward into a new moment of existence, structuring the trajectory of rebirth and future experience. It is very connected to intention. Sankhara has three forms. It has bodily formations, which are our physical actions and also our breath. It is verbal formations, which is speech, and also our internal thought-directed speech. So even when we are not speaking or we're in meditation, verbal formations are occurring through internal thought-directed speech or thought direction. So as we set our intention to pay attention on a certain object, this is sankhara. It is directing and evaluating is also sankhara. It's what we are telling ourselves. So when we are not mindful, they can get completely out of control. Sankhara is like a weed seed. Let's say you have an invasive tree that produces many seeds. All these seeds fall, and through a lack of mindfulness, they all find the conditions to grow through greed, aversion, ignorance. We create the conditions for these weed seeds to proliferate at a rapid rate. Each seed turns into a new tree with thousands more seeds, and that's how sankhara can go out of control. But if we are mindful, we can slow down the proliferation of sankhara, especially in unwholesome ways. And we can use sankhara to our benefit in the practice of meditation and developing skillfulness on the path. All mind states are a part of sankhara, whether they are wholesome or unwholesome, and whether they are active in or appear in every moment, or they are conditional and not in every moment. I mean occasional, not conditional. So all of these mind states, so including concentration, joy, rapture, or states of non-greed, non-aversion, in its broadest sense, the Buddha even says that as everything is conditioned phenomena, sabbe sankhara. Anything and everything that is compounded, conditioned, or made of parts. Every physical object, a tree, a cloud, a human body, a mountain, and every mental state, a passing mood, a memory, a system of philosophy, is a sankhara. They exist solely because a specific combination of causes and conditions brought them together. All formations are impermanent. Sabbe sankhara anicca. all formations are stressful or unsatisfactory. Sabbe sankhara dukkha. Because they cannot hold a permanent form, relying on them for lasting happiness inevitably results in dukkha, sankhara dukkha. So by practicing mindfulness and tracing how the mind constantly fabricates and clings to all its own creations, one can begin to slow down the engine of volition. We learn to let go of the clinging to these fabrications. And this is what uncovers the unconditioned, uncompounded peace of nirvana. Of course, there's a relationship between the other aggregates and sankhara. It relates to perception. So perception can influence sankhara, and sankhara can influence perception. Vedana can influence sankhara, and sankhara can influence vedana. The way we think about something can affect the feeling, the sensation, our experience of pleasant or unpleasant, which can affect how we label something. Or let's say we have a particular mental state, we might already be annoyed, frustrated, tired, in a bad mood, depressed, and then something occurs and the label is automatically a negative label. That might be different if we were in a good mood. So that's how sankhara can also affect perception. But once we label something, it is sometimes quite difficult to free ourselves from that label. So every time, let's say we have a boss we don't like or someone we don't like, the moment we see them, an unpleasant sensation arises. There is a label. This person is an enemy. They are a bad person. I should not associate with them. And this causes sankhara to arise, as well as volitional intention. How will you act according to these sensations and these perceptions and these sankhara arising? Will we speak rudely to them? Will we try and escape their presence? Will we, whatever the case may be. So sankhara affects very directly how we act, and our intentions are created. And also, because of our actions, the result of those actions, if we speak or act in an angry fashion, they will have specific results. That person might react back. Also, immediately when we react with anger, the physical sensations in our body will start to be very unpleasant. And then in turn we react again, instead of understanding that the physical sensation is the problem. Well, not the problem, but is the cause for is the attachment to the reaction to the physical sensation is the cause for the physical sensation. So with mindfulness, we can start to see all these processes. By seeing them clearly, we can see the suffering that they cause. And we can also start to see clearly how they are very impermanent. There was one retreat that I did. I remember there was a food on one day that I had never eaten before. When I tasted it, it was a very strong flavor. And my immediate reaction was, I don't like this. It was an unpleasant sensation. And somehow, through mindfulness and awareness, my mind relaxed. And then, or I don't know what changed, but suddenly it changed and it was very good tasting. And that was very interesting to me, to see how quickly our perceptions and feelings can change. And the same thing happens with discomfort and pain. We think it is permanent, it will never go away, and then suddenly it changes. Being aware of sankhara, so if we use the process of sankhara, of this quality of conditioning, we can condition skillful states. Mindfulness is a skillful state and a very important one on the path. So we use sankhara to develop mindfulness by practicing mindfulness, by practicing awareness of impermanence, suffering, and no self, or awareness of the Four Noble Truths. So we direct our awareness to qualities that are skillful, that lead to the end of suffering. So the process of awakening is a twofold process. One is the process of developing skillfulness, and then eventually letting go. And then apparently the aggregates disband. All experience of self, or maybe it's just clinging to aggregate, all experience of self or delusion completely disband. But in the process, we develop skillfulness. This is what we have control over at every moment. The disbanding is a natural process that occurs towards the end of our journey. As we have developed all the skillfulness necessary, and skillfulness can meet us at any point that we're at. So each person is at a different place on the path. And so we need to be aware and understanding of where we're at. We need to work out our own salvation. It is definitely one thing I've noticed about the masters that have all become enlightened. They have all worked out their own journey. They figured it out. They had to take all the things that they had learned and see how to best apply it to their own situation and where they're at. And then develop the skills that are necessary for them in particular. So one may be weak at this or better at that. One might have this tendency or that tendency. But learning to see what is skillful and what is unskillful. What will lead to the end of suffering, or what will lead to more suffering. So that's why mindfulness is incredibly important. In every present moment, continuous mindfulness. We know the causes and conditions that create this moment. We know this moment as it's happening. And we know and follow the results of what is happening now. And this is how we develop skillfulness. You can see cause and effect. And practice makes perfect. That's how practice makes perfect, through sankhara. So in the beginning we make effort, and later on it comes naturally. I have definitely noticed this recently as I have been focusing more on reading about and researching the various aggregates. These 2 weeks I focused on sankhara mainly. And because my attention has been directed to sankhara it much more easily arises for me to be aware of sankhara as I'm going through my daily life. Recently I had a conflict with another nun online in my center. And it was much easier for me to see the sankhara being created in the present moment. How, even though it was hard, because of a particular condition that my mind had already formed, it immediately went to a certain pattern of thinking and feeling and emotion and sensation. All of these that had been conditioned over who knows how long lifetimes. And definitely I see a pattern in my life with various people and how it got stuck in this loop. But because I'd been reading about sankhara and focusing on sankhara, this led to mindfulness of sankhara. So this is a skillful use of attention to sankhara that then will naturally help us on our path. Even the attention to sankhara helps us with the clinging to the aggregate of sankhara. And because of seeing that it is sankhara, that it is caused by clinging to a certain thought pattern, that arises without, it just arises. But by being aware, I can more easily let go, see it for what it is, and understand that it's causing me suffering, and let it go. And then this changes the trajectory of our sankhara. So instead of creating more bad sankhara or unskillful sankhara, by being mindful and letting go, I develop the sankhara of mindfulness and letting go, and awareness in the present moment. And of course, there were other aggregates involved, perception, and it was clear to see the perception and the Vedana as well, all interacting with each other. So I would like to actually talk a little bit about the mental factors that make up sankhara in a text called the Abhidhamma. It breaks down sankhara into these qualities of mind that arise in different combinations in every moment of knowing. And they are the building blocks of our mental activity, thoughts, emotions, mood, and mind states. So there are 4 different categories. The first category is the universal factors. There are 7. And these 7 factors arise in every moment of consciousness. So it's not only the 5 aggregates that arise in every moment of consciousness, it's these 7 universal factors: contact, feeling, perception, volition, one-pointedness, life faculty, and attention. So volition is explained as the will or urge that directs the mind towards an object. The second category is occasionals. There are 6 of them, and sometimes they are there, and sometimes they are not there. These include initial application, or what we can call effort, sustained application or sustained effort, decision, energy, rapture or joyful interest, and desire, the wish to act or achieve. And both of these can be either wholesome or unwholesome states of mind. So even rapture can be an unwholesome or a wholesome state of mind. Energy can be used skillfully or unskillfully. Concentration even can be used skillfully or unskillfully. For example, a thief might be highly concentrated while he is performing his action of thievery, maybe picking a lock or whatever the case may be. But if they are skillful, then they need to be developed because they are not always present, like effort. The third category is unwholesome factors that cloud the mind and lead to suffering. There are 14. It includes ignorance, restlessness, lack of shame, lack of dread or wrongdoing, lack of dread of wrongdoing. Lack of dread of wrongdoing. And we don't dread wrongdoing, we don't see the consequences. Greed, wrong view, conceit, hatred, envy, stinginess, regret, dullness, sloth, torpor, doubt. And so out of these 14 unwholesome factors, 4 arise in every unwholesome state: delusion, shamelessness, and fearlessness of wrongdoing, and restlessness. So that's also something that we can put our attention towards and be aware of. We can observe and understand what fuels and leads us into unwholesome states of mind and action. So let's say we're about to do something that is unwholesome. We know that it's perhaps not quite wholesome. We might act with greed in some way, take an extra piece of cake or something like that. And at that time we can examine this greed in terms of these 4 mental factors and see how they are conditioning the action, how they're leading us into the action. We would not, if we are aware and we see greed arising, and we can see that by acting on this greed, or even by allowing the greed to remain, the causes of these are delusion, of not knowing the consequences of that, or a shamelessness or fearlessness of the consequences. We know that it brings suffering, but we still do it anyway. And also restlessness. If we didn't have the restlessness, the craving would not take over. Or the craving causes a restlessness, or an even greater state of restlessness. But by becoming more aware of these, then it can help us very much in our releasing and letting go and developing wholesome qualities, including shame or fear of wrongdoing. So that leads us to the 4th category, which are beautiful factors. There are 25 of them. There are 19 beautiful universals, which include faith, mindfulness, shame of wrongdoing, dread of wrongdoing, non-greed, non-hatred, equanimity, and 12 others relating to tranquility and lightness of the mind, such as pliability, malleability. They also include right speech, right action, right livelihood, and compassion, appreciative joy, and wisdom. So by cultivating these beautiful factors, we can cultivate wholesome, happy states in the present and for the future that lead to the cessation of suffering. You can meditate a few moments.